The final signal. Kareth no longer knew how long he had been crawling. He was no longer running, not because he didn't want to, but because his body had refused to obey. He moved now by sheer will rather than muscle, dragging himself forward in silence, slipping between jagged stone pillars, avoiding the low basins where the ground still trembled faintly from the movements of predatory creatures roaming somewhere in the distance. Every time the earth quivered, Karath froze, pressing himself flat against the cold rock, holding his breath, blending into the terrain like an inanimate stone. He had learned that lesson in blood. Not every movement was necessary. Not every open space was safe. And on this planet, survival belonged not to the strongest, but to those who knew when to disappear. His ship was somewhere ahead. At times he lay flattened against the ground for hours as massive creatures lumbered past, their bulk sending tremors through the earth, loose stones rattling around him. At other times he was forced to submerge himself in pools of icy sludge, letting the foul stench and viscous muck mask the heat bleeding from his exhausted body. When at last, after a stretch of time too long to measure, the terrain opened into a wide stone basin, he stopped. He dropped to one knee, bracing himself with one hand, gasping for breath. And there, through the thin haze and the dull, dying light of the alien sky, he saw it, the ship. No longer proud as it had been upon descent, its hull was scorched, one side crushed inward, armor plates twisted as if raked by some colossal beast, but it still stood, silent, wounded, yet not dead. Hope flared, then was instantly strangled. The ground beneath him shuddered. Once. Then again. Not one presence. Many. From the deep fissures below, dark shapes emerged, their bodies glistening with damp mineral sheen. They crawled and surged upward as if the planet itself were vomiting forth its long-suppressed fury. Jaws yawned wide, teeth clacking together, the sound blending with the grinding of fractured stone. Karath clenched his jaw. There was no longer a way around. No cover left, only a straight path to the ship and dozens of creatures standing between. He roared, a hoarse, broken sound, not a challenge, but a command to himself to keep moving. Then he charged. What followed blurred into chaos, claws tearing into flesh, teeth scraping armor, violent impacts that sent his body spinning through the air. He fought with everything that remained, broken blades, jagged armor shards, even exposed bone, blood sprayed, indistinguishable in origin. When he fell again, the cold ground slammed into his chest, and for a moment he believed he would not rise. Then, through the haze, he saw the ship's hull, only a few dozen meters away. Karath roared again and forced every remaining fragment of strength into his legs, sprinting as the howls of the pursuing monsters closed in behind him. A claw raked across his back, tearing away the last of his armor, but he did not stop. He hurled himself into the open bay and slammed his hand onto the control panel. The hatch sealed shut in an instant. A violent impact rocked the entire vessel, but the reinforced alloy held. Outside, the creatures hurled themselves against the hull, claws and bodies hammering against metal in a deafening storm. Karath collapsed onto the deck, blood spreading beneath him. He did not hesitate. With trembling fingers, he activated the emergency control system. Automated defense turrets along the hull rotated, emitting a low mechanical whine before unleashing streams of searing energy, burning away the creatures clinging to the ship. Flashes of light strobed through the cabin, illuminating Karath's face, battered, torn, but still conscious. He activated the distress beacon. A sharp beam of cold light pierced the thick cloud layer, shooting into the black sky above, carrying a frequency only Yocha warriors could recognize. Then, he slumped back into the pilot's seat. Outside, the creatures continued to shriek, but the sounds were now muffled, distant, muted by layers of alloy. Karath closed his eyes, not to rest, but to wait.